Hey, Natalie, you ready?
Yes. We're good to start.
Thank you. It's 5:31 on June 14th, 2022, and I'm calling this Sugarland Parks Board meeting to order. The first item we have on the agenda is the public comments. So do we have any public comments or any speakers?
We don't have anyone signed up.
Thank you. Moving on to the second item. The third item is a workshop. The review of and discussion on the Imperial Prison Farm Cemetery site improvement conceptual design. Teresa Canty, performance analysis and handling Parks Board Manager, will be presenting.
Thank you, Koji.
Yes.
Jalisa from Innovation Department, she's not available this week, so I will be the one to present the project to you all. Before I start, I want to introduce Ms. Shayla Lee. She used to work for our Innovation Department, and she has been very instrumental in coordinating for this very important project, because this project has staff working together from multiple departments. And she has been recently promoted to be the assistant to city manager. And we are very happy and her to be here today with us and showing the support from our city manager's office. With that, I'm going to update you about the old Imperial Farm project. For some of you will be, how many of you know about this cemetery? Oh, almost everyone. So if you're not aware of this project, it is a cemetery that, a historic cemetery. It actually has the historic marker. It's located at Chatham's Avenue and Eastern Avenue at the Telfair. This cemetery site has the remains from the prisoners or possible guards from the historical prison, Imperial Prison Farm. And then this project, we will talk about our proposed improvement for the cemetery site. So today, I'm going to start with the project goals and vision, and then introduce the sub areas we have been working on, update you on the work progress, and discuss the next steps. So during the, in September 2020, City Council gave us the directions to have the Imperial Cemetery site improvements. Not only to come up with a memorialization plan for the people that were buried here, but also identify additional funding opportunities. At the same time, they asked us to complete the additional archaeology studies at the city-owned site near the cemetery, and also want us to provide some supporting documents for convict listing at the exhibition of the Sugarland Heritage Museum. So with that goal in mind, we have worked with, as I mentioned earlier, multiple departments have been working together, and we have several work areas. Some of us from we mainly Parks Department and the Engineering Department were working on the site improvements, which I will explain a little bit more in the next slides. At the same time, we have staff working on the grant research, grant application, historic research, and also public art plan. We have a consultant to help us to explore the funding opportunities for arts as well. So this is a general introduction of how our three areas to accomplish our goals. Very quickly, for the work in progress, we have done conceptual design for the site improvement in-house. We are working with a cemetery, Texas Cemetery preservation consultant to come up with a preservation and a maintenance plan including how to restore the existing tombstones. We also are working on the phasing plan and the cost estimate. In addition to that, the project team had a tour at the Sugarland 95. Also, we participated in Sugarland 95 public engagement sessions. The prisoners that are buried here, mainly they died from 1912 to 1942. The Sugarland 95 were died from about 1890s to about 1912. So it's a very different time period. But we wanted to understand what Sugarland 95 team is doing so that we can have a comprehensive understanding of the project context. At the same time, we also are doing more in-depth literature review. I know Kimberly has a lot of in-depth and historic knowledge about this project. And we plan to talk to different entities such as Fort Bend Historic Commission and other university personnel who have worked on this piece of work. And certainly we are doing the research on the grant opportunities. And as I mentioned earlier, we already working with a consultant called Bill Partners. They are helping us to look for grants, art-related grants, and also they are preparing a public art plan. I'm sure we're going to come back with this related information. Right now, we have been talking about temporary art, permanent art, and some performance type of art. So that's in the works. Project location. This map shows this is the Highway 6, 19A, and then this one is the University Drive, University Boulevard. This road is the Chandam Avenue, and then this is the Eastern Avenue. So our cemetery site is kind of right next to the Eastern Avenue, right here. And then if you can see my mouse, this area is the 65-acre community park that I was talking about. Right now, it's just undeveloped, and we mowed the site. And then I think we updated you on this project before on our CIP projects. Moving to the next one, I'm going to dive into the actual design, which is the kind of main focus of today's presentation. Based on the requirements from the City Council, and several team meetings, we discussed the design principles for the site improvement. The main purpose of this project is to provide memorialization amenities for the project. And also we need to be able to provide accessibility. Right now we have no way to park, no way to get into. Accessibility is very important for phase one. We also want to not only look at the cemetery itself, but also make connections with other historic sites in Sugarland so that we can tell a full story. Next, as you know, the site is not in the middle, but is within the Sugarland, the 65-acre community park. So whatever we do, we need to be well integrated into the future park design. And also, this project has ongoing grant application. We don't really have a lot of funding. And also, we are continuing with the research. So the design is to stay flexible to incorporate the new changes or new funding or new research results. Under these principles, we have also developed a series of design strategies that including, we want to be able to use hardscape, softscape, signage, art, and programming together to tell a full story. We also want to be able, want people to have full experience from the point when they come to the site, park their car, go to the cemetery and leave. So we need to provide a full experience for them. It is also a placemaking project. We want to create a place for people to, for remembrance, retrospection, healing, education, and maybe even community events. And then I talked about the phasing earlier. Phasing is very important because we need to stay flexible to accommodate ongoing funding effort, as well as the public art integration. And then lastly, we need to, the project needs to be very maintenance friendly so that it has long-term success. So based on the design principles and strategies, we have gone through a series of design iterations. So this is the design we have so far, and certainly welcome any comments or feedback or suggestions. I'm going to walk you through quickly and on the design in general, and I will dive into a few components in the next slides. So this is the Eastern Avenue. As right now, there's no parking. Typically, people have to park either here, kind of in the neighborhood, or walk here, or kind of risk their lives to park along Eastern Avenue. So we want to be able to create vehicular access with about 8 to 10 parking spaces. This driveway also has the potential, is able to be expanded to access the future parking lot for the community park. When you park your car, you kind of walk through a walkway, and also you kind of pass by the entry landscape. So those walkway has beautiful planting beds, art elements, and the signage on both sides to transition you from a busy street, a busy world, to a sacred place. So after you walk into the cemetery, you are able to either walk into the existing, and right now it's all fenced off. So we're going to take down the fence. You are able to either walk into the cemetery and look at the restored gravestones and additional information we're going to provide on the pillow markers, or you can stay at the decomposed granite, this tan color with dots. This is the proposed decomposed granite space around the cemetery. And that's a space where you can either sit or have a small group or have a community event or do nothing. It's just so that it's a quiet, peaceful, healing space for the visitors. You can also walk around this circular promenade with shade on both sides from the 36 trees, the native hardwood trees. We intend for these 36 trees to be memorial trees for the 36 people that were buried here, to honor them. These people, they sacrificed their health and their lives for the sugar business in that time of the year. So hopefully we want to use those beautiful trees to create shade and a calming environment, a soothing environment, so that the trees can hug them and then embrace the cemetery, and then so that they can rest in peace. And also, in addition, you will see those diagonal trails. They are pointing to the different sites, which I'm going to explain a little bit more on the next slide. So those diagonal, those angles are decided because of the other historic locations. So this angle points to the central unit, prison central unit, north side of the 90A, right at the south corner of the Colony Park. And then this diagonal trail points to the Sugarland Heritage Museum and the historic Imperial sugar plant. And then this points to the Sugarland 95 Memorial Site, and this one points to the Houston Museum of Natural Science, which also previously was, I think, a state prison farm number 2. So that's the kind of the reason behind it. Certainly, just the trail, band trail is strange, and the people don't know that. But I think we, at the end of each band trail, can provide some interpretive signage to provide education to help people to connect the dots in order to understand about the full history of Sugarland. We are also working, the team is also working on a comprehensive timeline for the convict listing so that we can put it on the city's website or put it on a brochure. We are still kind of working on that. This is part of the community education. So now I'm going to talk about the landscape concept. So we got the design inspiration from a lot of researching and reading on what happened during that time of year. And then the prisoners were, they worked in a very harsh environment. They were treated brutally. And then the typical or the only landscape they experienced is the sugar field. They lived in very bad condition, and most of them pretty much died within a year after they came to the prison. However, we know that their effort actually helped the Sugarland to be what we are today. So from the landscape point of view, we want to kind of use a concept that reminds people about the sugar field, the agricultural field, at the same time, so that we can help people to understand or remember what happened to those people many years ago. So inspired by the sugar field, we want to use a combination of ornamental grasses to create this soothing and peaceful landscape. This landscape is very different from what you typically see at Telfair or the rest of Sugarland. In Telfair, you normally see knockout roses and crepe myrtles. So the different style of this ornamental grass landscape creates a kind of identity and help people and a high and the visibility for the cemetery. Certainly they have different feature at different seasons, and then in the winter you just need to kind of cut off the heads, and then in the spring they're going to come back again, and then they don't need a lot of water. So we were thinking this kind of combination of ornamental grasses can be used for the entry landscape, and also I'm going to go to the next slide. Also along the walkway, we continue the landscape concept. So those are the things in the pink or purple are the serious planting beds with ornamental grasses, and then in between there's opportunity to have the pavement that holds permanent or temporary art elements. For example, at the end of each concrete paving, we could have some kind of inspirational or memorial sculpture or art. And then on the concrete, we could etch some inspirational quote or stories. Normally you don't see it on the concrete, but when it rains or people pour water on it, it reveals. This is example from a different memorial project. Those are just some examples. As I mentioned earlier, we have a consultant to be a partner helping us to come up with a public art plan, and we're going to kind of the art group will dive deeper on the actual art or the design. So here, for our job on the site improvement is to provide the setting or the flexible opportunity for them to be able to integrate art into the site. So I just talk about the walkways, and the walkways can really help to tell the story and also act as a filter for the visitors between the parking lot, the street, to the cemetery. Regarding the history, I also mentioned that we have the walkway on both sides of the cemetery. One part is we can sort of show the history in 1900s, but on the other, in addition, we could also show the history what we are creating now. We all know, like since Sugarland 95 was discovered, the whole community really come together to try to understand the history. Sugarland as one of the most diverse community, we really bravely and honestly to face the history and then discover the truth and want to come together for the freedom, the equity, and the human rights. So what we are doing now in today's meeting is part of the history. So we could document those things that the community has done for our next generations. Also, there's also a donor recognition opportunity here along the walkways. We could use some abstract art that is sort of abstract sugarcane or something else. It's up to the artist's design. One of the ideas is to use the very simple abstract art kind of installed at the planting beds along the walkways. So they are not only beautiful, but also you can be used as donor recognition. For example, if somebody or entity donates $1,000 or $2,000, we could carve their names on the art piece or the recognition piece to appreciate and honor them. So that we can, help to give the community or even communities outside of the Sugarland to have opportunity to be part of it and help us to get more funding. These are the two renderings done by our cemetery preservation consultant. This is to show you how we kind of want to get rid of the big fence, and then we want to allow people to walk into the cemetery. And also we think we can have some customized site furnishing. For example, the bench could, for people to sit down and relax or retrospect. The benches can have very simple materials such as wood or concrete. And then they also have opportunity to integrate signage or art. The signage could have more description on the history or the people who were buried here. So the opportunity is really endless. We are very excited to, to integrate the site with any art opportunity. For phasing, we just worked on the phasing plan. And then, because right now we really don't have the funding to implement everything. So the phase one will be the first priority. We want to get people to to drive to the side, people to park, the parking, and also the concrete sidewalk. And then certainly the phase one will also include the restoration of the cemetery, especially the tombstones. So that we can slow down the deterioration of those elements. And then the phase two will be, we hope to be able to construct the decomposed granite space with the 36 newer trees and associate irrigation, so that it really become a space that more people can come for education or community events. And then the third phase will be the enhancement of the walkway I just mentioned with nicer planting, art, and signage, interpretive signs. That's pretty much the major update of this site improvement. For our next steps, as I mentioned earlier, we are working on the cost estimates for the site improvement, especially for each phase, so that we can come up with a strategy. We're also working with the cemetery preservation consultant to come up with the cost for the restoration of those tombstones. And then certainly we need to do the archaeology study, especially for the area that we're going to have the new construction. And then we will continue with our grant application, historical research, and the public art plan. With that kind of concludes my presentation. I want to mention that not only Shayla is on the project, Joe, William, and Kimberly, we're all on the team. So we're open to questions. Questions?
Well, comments like I like the presentation, how you phased everything out from 1, 2, 3, how it's presented. Finished materials, I guess the whole concept and design that was brought out is great. I like the, was that 36 trees for the 36 individuals? I guess the plants it's very well thought of to kind of showcase like something that's very low, not really low maintenance, but just like very easy and something that's different, that signifies the space. The decomposed granite, it's always great to have kind of peaceful. If you walk on it, it creates a nice soothing sound. Kids love to kick it. So I know so, my boy does it all the time. But now I like the concept and how the directional thing that kind of pays homage to connect certain pieces of the Sugarland together. I'm sure it's thought of, but one thing that we didn't hear was actually lighting. Because it's for partial, I'm sure it's part of the design in there somewhere too. But you know, it's something that can be very useful, especially in the nighttime, when it's not really occupied, but something that's really vital and kind of like a heartbeat. It just starts, it lives, and for safety too.
Yeah.
But,
we right now the utility on this side, the existing public utility on this side is very limited. So we are working on, for phase 1, we probably don't have funding for any lighting, but hopefully for phase 2, we have some money for lighting, not only safety reasons, but also some of the cool arts probably need some lighting. We kind of discussed a little bit, but we know how much budget we are working with, so we didn't really go further. Thank you for the comment, and I will definitely.
to add on to it, donor possibilities can be lighting also. It can be a nice cool arts installation that kind of, you know, like a spinal cord that goes through the cemetery through the way, so it can kind of pulsates, you know, and then it has like a signage describing the concept and design, and then donated and funded by so-and-so, you know. It's something that kind of brings more life to the cemetery. It's kind of weird, but yeah. But yeah, I like the layout, and like I said, the parking for now until continual parking. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, this is great.
Thank you.
Joan?
I love it also. I love the plan, and I love the 36 memorial trees. And I love the idea of the grasses, the low maintenance of grasses. And it reminds me of an Amsterdam landscape architect, Piet Oudorff, and he combines grasses with perennials. And his analogy or his thoughts behind it is that as you watch the grasses and the perennials, whichever one die, he loves to see the dead grasses too, because it reminds us of the cycle of life.
Exactly.
And I think this is so much like that. And I love the art with the openings in it. And I particularly love the idea of the story being in the concrete that you can't see until it's wet. You know, so a water feature would also maybe be another possibility to, you know, to put around that walkway. And isn't there an artist in Houston, in their art in public place where you do put water on it and it's readable? I think there is an art piece in Houston that has that. There's also an art piece at University of Houston that, like, you showed those plants that were openings in the panel. There's also a piece that goes in a circle and it's a story. And I don't know who
Is
that
that
artist
the
is.
library?
The spiral.
Yes,
Yeah, the
is
spiral
that the
metal art piece.
library at U of
Yeah.
H? Yeah, and that's beautiful
The
too.
UH main campus?
You know,
Mhm.
the
Main
U of
campus.
H main campus, because we went on a trip there. Yeah, that was a long time ago, but I remember it,
It's
and that
fun.
reminded me of it, but beautiful presentation. Thank you. I'm excited to see what Sugarland is doing to honor those people who helped Sugarland be what it is.
Kelsey?
I'm gonna pile on the praise. I think it's extremely thoughtful. I'm very excited to see where this goes, down to the angles of the paths. I think that's really cool. And I look forward to seeing, as the phases continue, how the signage, because that's gonna be really important in explaining why all these design choices are made. Because once you tell the story, it's not just a circle, it's this whole rationale. And I think that's gonna really enrich the experience. Just to be a nature nerd, I also appreciate the inclusion of native grasses and the tropical milkweed, which I saw thrown in there. And I will throw out, just for fun, there is a native grass species called sugarcane plume grass, which is related to sugarcane and is like our native pampas grass. Beautiful, but it's more pink. I think it's prettier. That's just me. But yeah, great low maintenance species. So I love it.
What's it called? Sugarcane?
Sugarcane plume grass,
Sugarcane. Okay.
Saccharum giganteum, something like that.
That's great, we're into that.
Kelly?
So I also love it and love for all the reasons. I love the grass idea. I love the trees. I think that's really significant. I think that's really, really nice. And I also noticed you've got the walkway to, or the path to the Sugarland 95 site. And I was curious about that. I think that's really important to connect those two sites. So I think that's great.
Yeah, we talk about kind of internally that somehow we want to connect the pedestrian connection between this side and the Sugar 95. I think it's about a mile of walking. So how much people want to walk, that's a question, but also it's actually, if you look at the other side, those people, they were walking in very hot, humid climate. And then to have people walk actually from here 1 mile to the other side might be a sort of performing type of experience, so that they can understand, that can imagine those people's work environment.
I think that's a very important point. And the other thing too is that the view from that path area, I know from the Sugarland 95 site, you can see a lot of Sugarland, you can see the refinery, you can see Central Unit. So it would be an interesting walk, you could sort of point out things along the way. Which leads to, do we know, is there a plan for the Central Unit? Like, is that part of this, or who owns that? What's happening to that?
I think that's still undecided.
Is
I
that
think-
the
I think
city's
the
property?
hope, yes,
Oh, okay.
I think the hope is to keep the building. But what can be done with it is the challenge.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
just, it's just
So that's not related to this.
not, well, I mean, only in the sense that I think some of the information and signage and things would try to tie it together.
Right.
But they're close in proximity. And I think ultimately, we'd love to have some sort of facility there that, I don't know if it's a museum, I don't know what it would be, but just some way to retain that building and have it utilized as something. It's just, it's a bunch of little cells and it's not accessible in the least. And it's one of those kind of nightmare buildings to try to retrofit it. into
Is
something
it
else.
historically designated, the building?
I don't know. That's primarily being handled in a different department than Parks, so we hear bits and pieces of it, but we're not that plugged into it.
And just, let's see, I think one or two more thoughts. One is on the donor recognition. It just hits me. I think it's important, very important to do donor recognition, but I just wonder if you can do it somewhere outside of the memorial area. Because I sort of feel like, if I went to a cemetery, to a regular cemetery, or to a, 9/11, the ground zero or something, I just feel like the donor recognition part needs to be kind of separate from the memorializing of the deceased part. So either, up front or, you know what I'm saying, just kind of closer to the entrance, whatever it would be, but before you get into the real memorializing part of it, it
That's a
just
good
feels.
point. Right now, we kind of use this circle area as the memorial site, and then walkway is really outside.
Right.
But I think to your point, maybe the donor recognition could be more sort of near the entry landscape and this area.
Right.
Or the area.
Also, having the donors' names on sugarcane, I didn't even think about this earlier, is a little
Ooh, good point.
symbolically problematic. The donor name's on something that looks like the sugarcane. I
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
can.
Maybe it's just me.
Unless it, well,
Yeah.
yeah, unless it's some of the old
That's part of
plantation
it.
families.
When we have the art pieces in place, when we have the art design process, we are going to have public engagement so that comments and the feedback like that could be, be part of the decision making. But I appreciate your comment and I think that's a very valid point.
And I think, that's what you're talking about, the public engagement. I hope that there is a big public engagement push and that there's a lot of publicity about it, because I think there are a lot of people here that in this area in particular, but I know people all over the city of Houston and beyond that are involved in things like the lynching museum or, other kind of historic convict leasing sites, that kind of thing around the country. And there are a lot of eyes on this right now. And I think that the more public you make the process and get feedback, and I'm sure you're in touch with Chastity at she's been through all this, right? So you know from her experience. But I think the more people we invite into the process, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, that's right. So we did talk about public engagement plan for just the site improvement, since we are really kind of doing very basic improvements. We are sort of relying on you guys as part of the public engagement. And then we will also have project website and public press release. But when we get to the public art area, either permanent or temporary art or performing art, that's the place where we're going to have a lot of public engagement.
That's great. Thank you. It's wonderful.
So great comments.
I still have a question.
You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think he mentioned 36 persons. And in the write-up, you say there's some guards there as well. So 36 trees, that'll include the guards as well. And, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Very good question. We know right now, that's kind of part of the reason that we need to do more further research. And then right now we know there are 36 people buried here.
Yes,
But based on the research, some literature says 36 prisoners. Some literature says the 36 people include guards. So we just need to do more research.
Mhm.
And that's why it says possible guards.
Right. Which I'm okay with it. I mean, these are
Yeah.
individuals that
Yeah,
were there, part of this. So.
and we actually don't know if there's any more buried here.
Right, that was gonna be my next question. Once you do the archaeological,
Right.
if you find out there's actually 40
Yeah.
or
That's
more,
why
is
this
that 40
design,
trees?
this design can easily accommodate more trees.
Or would you change the approach, not do trees, do something else? I mean, if there's 40, 50, who knows?
Yeah, just give a quick example. We can easily have one more row, or we have.
So we're committed to the trees
Yeah, or the spacing could be a little bit tighter.
for tree growth.
Yeah, for trees, so. yeah. But we can think of other methods once we find out.
The other thing, I think piggyback on lighting, there's no bathrooms, I guess the funding's not there for that. Bathrooms will probably be part of some other
For the 65-acre community park, we do have bathrooms. in the
Okay,
plan.
accessible to this area.
Yeah, so hopefully the resident can vote for us to
Right.
build that. And I do know, I mean, it's still far away, but I do the Sugarland 95 Memorial site probably want to have bathroom. I don't know. Don't
Right.
quote on me. It's possible. But right now we don't have budget.
Right, that's right. It is a playground area or I guess, outside of the cemetery is used by the community for recreational activities. This is open, so how do we prevent or discourage persons if they're playing soccer or playing baseball for those kind of things to kind of intrude into this and maybe even damage the
Yeah.
plantings, or is there gonna be, I guess there is not any gates or fencing at all.
We don't have gates or fencing. Pretty much our public parks are open to the public,
Yes,
except like a colony park. But in terms of this side this is the road. I really I cannot imagine that kids will.
oh, no, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking on the other
On this,
side.
on the other side, actually, next time when we come back to present again, we will show the entire, we can show the entire 65-acre park. We do have some.
When the original design was done for the full 65 acres, the plan kind of called for making sure we didn't have things like soccer fields or cricket fields or something right up against the cemetery. So you had sort of a buffer between the other more active uses of the
Right.
park and the cemetery. And thinking back to that design, even if you had like the trees in this configuration here, the rest of the park would probably have a lot of trees and things that would kind of visually
Shelter.
separate the two and kind of make this its own distinct area. So that's, but it is a wide open space.
Sure, that's what I was.
So, but it's not gonna be like where you could potentially have soccer balls or footballs or whatever,
baseballs
you know,
in
thrown
the-
into that area.
So,
But 65 acres is plenty of room to
Sure,
spread it out.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, further questions?
yes.
Okay.
You mentioned you're gonna try to do restoration of the tombstones. Would it be more cost effective to just relocate the tombstones to a museum and just put some placards, maybe brass placards for the other individuals?
We had a very in-depth discussion with the Texas Cemetery Preservation Company. They have done a lot of cemetery restoration in the state.
Okay,
So what right now they are recommending is we try to refurbish the existing gravestones.
there's 36 of them currently.
No, actually 31 of them are there and
Okay.
5 are missing. That's why those 5 people, we even don't know their name,
Uh,
birth date and death date or prison number. And then we do know that 2 tombstones said the same person.
Hmm.
So we talk about maybe there's opportunity to relocate one of that repeated one to the museum, kind of preserve it and as a, in the museum inside, so it can last longer. But for things outside, we can only slow down the deterioration of
Right.
those. And
That's
those
why I
are the concrete, even without appropriate reinforcement. So one thing the consultant recommends is in front of each tombstone, we install a pillow marker that a granite pillow marker that you can use them that you see what the original tombstones were refurbished tombstones, but also you can read about the person who is buried there on the ground.
Sure,
on the
okay.
pillow marker.
Good, okay. I guess the last thing is the artwork that will be commissioned at some future date. I guess there'll be artists solicited to come out and try to give some proposals and things.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, excellent. And do we know, I guess we won't know the prisoners, why were they there? What was their crimes? I guess that'll be part of the historical story.
Yeah, that will be part of the
Presented.
historic story, and we hope to reflected in some of the interpretive signage, and the
Yes.
signage needs to be also well thought out and
Yes.
written. But I do want to mention that from what I read, some of them were like stealing a cow or stealing something like.
This is
very-
Texas, cattle wrestling is pretty,
Yeah, very minimal, very, very,
especially, well, cattle wrestling back then was probably
yeah,
insignificant.
yeah, so. But
Anyway, yeah,
I
thank you.
didn't, I know there's a lot of research that has been done and I
Yes.
have not really read all
It's just when I hear prisoner, I think
yeah,
they did a crime. But
right.
anyway, thank you.
Oh, Kelly, you have more?
Just a quick note on that. This past weekend, I happened to hear on NPR, I think the program is called I See You.
Mhm.
And it's a local reporter who does this kind of in-depth report. And he was actually talking to the woman Chastity, who is in charge of the Sugarland 95 site. And there's a lot of information on that recording about the convicts and, you
That were
know,
there.
that are on Sugarland 95 site. And I think it's, you know, similar, the ideas, you know, why they were,
Incarcerated.
why they were picked up, you know, they were caught stealing. A lot of them were caught stealing something minimal. But the state needed the convicts
Mhm.
to work the land to be able to lease them out. So
Right.
anyway, there's a lot more information on that ICU. So.
Anyone else? I just want to thank you and just the fact that you brought some really good questions and comments to the project. This is a very important project for the city, and I do appreciate the comments again. I do mimic the kudos that everyone has presented, and I also too would say this presentation is great. In fact, the concept is great with lots of flexibility. Do appreciate that. And if there's no other questions, we'll thank you Finley, for your presentation. It was fantastic. We look forward to the next time when we present for the 65 acre with this. Thank you. So next item I have on here is the review and discussion on proposal from Shared Kayak for a kayak sharing facility at Sugarland Memorial Park. Kimberly Thrall, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, will be presenting.
I have an exciting proposal for you here tonight from Share Kayak. So kayaking is a popular activity. A few years ago, as you probably recall, we passed an ordinance for kayaking in parks at Cullinan Park and at Memorial Park. And the city has had kayak rentals here in the past. We have a concessionaire that'll come out on occasion on the weekends and they'll do kayak renting out there on site. So Share Kayak is a global company and they've recently expanded into the United States and into Texas. They have locations at the Woodlands and Lake Conroe currently and even some beyond that. And our representative is here with us tonight, Mr. Jawad Jasani, and he is a resident of Sugarland. So the kayak rental kiosks, if you're familiar with the bike sharing programs, it's sort of like that. So it's a self-service application for the rental. So you can, with your cell phone, you can log into the application. You can, you use your credit card and you rent them. There's different programs by the hour, different rental programs there. There's no additional park maintenance, O&M. And so the rentals of the kayak, it provides an alternative for ownership. So maybe if you're visiting the city, you didn't bring your kayak with you, but you want to have an activity. Maybe you've come to the park and you're like, oh look, kayaks, we totally want to go. So it's a way. Maybe you have a small car. I don't know. Maybe you can't carry a kayak around. So it provides an alternative to that ownership. And the kiosks themselves, they contain everything that you need to kayaks and not just the boat, right? You don't have to bring your own paddle. So the paddles are provided, the life jacks are provided, and the kayaks are provided as well. And the picture down here on the bottom, this is one that's along the Woodlands. So how it works, as I said, there's a QR code that's on the little kayak station that you scan to get to the app. There is a little lock on the kayaks that's activated by your app, so it unlocks it. And then you take the kayak out and all the equipment out, and then when you return it, when you lock it back up, you scan it back in again, and that charges your card through that app. No power is required for it. It's all, the little lock is battery operated, and it operates on for cellular signal. So the lease terms, we're proposing initially 3 of the kiosks. If you're familiar with Sugarland Memorial Park, here's the main pavilion over here. And this is the area where most people access the water. It's a nice low sloped area. So we're proposing the 3 kayak rental stations be in this little triangle area here. The lease agreement would include a $100 per month lease, a base lease, and then plus 25% of the revenue. The anticipated revenue from Jawad is about 12,000 to 14,000 a year annual revenue. This is for an initial 1-year term with 4 additional 1-year terms. And it would be completely maintained and operated by Share Kayak. The city would, obviously the city, if we go by there and there's a problem or something, we will report it, but otherwise it's going to be monitored by Share Kayak and operated completely by Share Kayak. So some additional considerations, Share Kayak has to provide all of the insurance and waivers of subrogation in favor of the city. Users are required to follow all laws that are required by the state. And as you recall from our ordinance discussion, that we have paddling signage out there that goes quite in details on the rules for that. But there are additional terms and conditions that are required by Share Kayak. And these are here in the white to your right. And the folks, when they sign up for that and they acknowledge the app, they're agreeing to these additional terms and conditions. So their terms and conditions, you have to be 18, you have to acknowledge that you can swim and have a basic knowledge of kayaking, that you're not under the influence of alcohol, you're taking responsibility for your actions, and you're not responsible for any, Share Kayak isn't responsible for any incidents that are caused by you. So our next steps after the meeting, we're going to bring this to City Council in July. After that, Share Kayak will need to submit your traditional construction plans through the permitting process for permanent construction, and then we'll have it built out there, and then we will advertise, and hopefully people will successfully use it. We see it; it's a popular activity out there. When we have the rentals out there, people are excited, and when we have them, we are. When we do have folks renting out there, it's sort of difficult to get them going because I think that sometimes they don't have enough people, so that has to be worthwhile for them. But these will be out there all the time, so people will be able to use them all the time. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and Jawad is happy to answer any questions if you have any specifically for him as well.
This sounds great. I was just wondering, is there a phone number listed for any kind of problems that somebody might have on there that they'll be able to reach somebody?
Sure.
And I think that you can see some of the signage on one of these pictures. On the picture on the bottom left, you see some of the signage that is that's in place on the station.
So it's all the information plus the phone number or the email address in case sometimes people forget to check out the application and the rental continues up to like 4 hours and they send back, hey, I was overcharged, so there is email address always there in case if there is any technical issue, they can come back and ask us if there's difficulty.
I have a question. So since you're responsible for the setup, how often will you come out to check for insects, bees, building nests, that kind of stuff?
So it's every week.
Weekly, so it'll be a weekly.
So
Oh,
weekly.
perfect.
Checking on the not just on the bugs and the insects, but checking, make sure the panels are still there, the
The
electrics are
equipment
still
is
there,
all-
the equipment is there. Checking the integrity of the kayaks. Sometimes people
Things
in a
happen.
hole.
Things happen.
It's just like
Things happen.
just drag the kayak so badly that it's just stood up and it's the whole now. So
Right.
of course I have to check it out.
The other question is this, since it's located there at the Memorial Lake, but it doesn't prevent anyone to decide to take it to the Brazos, right?
It does not.
So, but if that were to happen, does the insurance, how does that work?
So
Not to say that it'll happen.
Credit card.
so if somebody were to steal, we have the credit card.
And not just
information.
a steal, but
Or if
just,
somebody was to go somewhere else,
Right.
yeah, it just happened.
Right,
It just
okay.
happened.
And our lake, how deep is it? It's not
Or
very
like,
big.
well, it varies, but it's generally about 6 to 7.
6 to 7 days, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say something. No, this is great. I mean, we had rentals there. I've been volunteered. I mean, I've jumped in there and I was like, yeah, this is great. My brother-in-law also brought his kayak in there whenever there's no rentals and released right there in the same spot. Very favorable, easy to go down. And people will watch him. They're like, wow. So whenever he takes all the kids out, my kids and everything, people are lining up.
Oh.
Like, and then, so sure enough, no, seriously, they'll get on, he's like, I'll take you. And he'll just take him around, exercise, and there, he gets back, there's another line. He's like. So anyway, but the thing is, it will have traffic, I'm sure, especially on great days.
Yeah.
And then, security, I guess, is not really security, maintenance, I guess you said like once a week to check. And you can't really stop someone from.
No,
going to
I
their way,
should know about the liability of the insurance.
But yeah, so it's something that I think it'll be very, very welcomed. And, as long as you upkeep, I think it's fine.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, the landing, I don't think it's concreted or anything like that. So if that gets overused, damaged, muddy, whatnot, so who's
We had
responsible
slippage.
now?
Actually, I remember getting there, we had to try to get the people that lined up, we're trying to get them in there, and then there's some slippage in there. We had to pull it up a little bit and get them in, then push them back, and it starts getting soft and muddy.
We're looking at a floating dock in that area to make it easier to get in and out, because getting in and out of kayaks, I'm never great at doing. I try not to soak myself too.
That's part of the fun.
I know.
It's part of it.
We're looking at
Experience.
some opportunities in that area to improve the
And-
launch area.
Another thing is we're ready for any kind of instance where someone does flip out there in the middle.
They don't have the life
The
vest.
life jacket.
Yeah, I know,
This
this
is life jacket
And
and
it's 6 feet.
6 feet
Yeah.
and
Let's
it's
stand.
comes
You can drive
it's
3 inches
slippery
away.
and muggy. Muddy, so.
Never underestimate the ability for people on the water to mess up.
And people are still welcome to bring their own kayaks and
Yeah.
things. as they would want.
All right, sounds good.
Can I just suggest that on the list of things that the people are agreeing to, that it's not only, I'm not gonna blame Share Kayak for this, but also I'm not gonna blame the city of Sugarland for this.
So.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so this is just one of those questionnaires that pops up in the app, but before that, there's a whole waiver form. So last
Okay.
time we had the comment we did with the Woodland Township, their legal team reviewed our waiver form and they added the language of covering the Woodland Township too.
Great.
So same will happen here, but I will pass it to Kimberly, the waiver form, and wherever you need to add this city of Sugarland, it will be added there.
Acting responsibly too, people will horseplay.
No battling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another question.
You watched me, Pat.
Any other questions or comments? I think this is great. I mean, there's another opportunity to use that area.
Mhm.
Not just the runners or walkers, now we
Yeah.
have the kayaks, that's fantastic.
Really great fun.
So, thank you. All right,
Do we
thank you
need
very
a
much, I
motion?
appreciate it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is
Do we
it
need a
something?
motion?
to-
No, it's just a
this was-
no, it's just
Oh, okay.
presentation.
Yeah.
It's just presentation.
Just checking.
So the next item we have on the last item we have is the director's report. So Mr. Joe Tresher, Director of Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Presenting.
Bring it home, Jill.
All right.
All right.
All of our divisions in the department have done wonderful things the last month, but I won't go into all of them. I'll just hit the highlights. How's that? So, kind of an effort citywide that we in Parks have been working on somewhat, but it's also mostly driven by our economic development division. But the parklets, they're going in at some of the business locations, some of the strip centers around the city. It's a way to sort of get some activity outside the walls of the restaurants or the facility. This one's near Blaze Pizza over there. You can see the lake in the background. That's the lake off of Highway 6 around Kensington there. And there's also another one at the center along Highway 6 by the Randall Center over there. There's another one there. They're continuing to look around the city. They're built in conjunction with a local architect here in Sugarland. And so our role in this was getting the ribbon cutting set up and having the ribbon cutting and grand opening, and these are all the council members there at the opening there on June 7th. We'd like to celebrate folks that work in our department. We had a number of guys that hit milestones in the department. Matt Hoffman, who's been here 15 years, and then Tony Hastings, 5, and Jose Mora has been 5 years also. And then this was Luis Gonzalez. He just got his award, but he was awarded a while back for his 5 years. So I'm just celebrating some tenure in the department there. And this was a really interesting project. We always do Eagle Scout projects. For years, we've done Eagle Scout projects for activities or improvements to the park. And then this one was brought forward to us, and it really fits great at Brazos River Park, Memorial Park, because mountain biking is so popular there. And the Eagle Scout's name is Jackson Priestmeyer, and that's him right here. And then these are his assistants and helpers. Eagle Scout projects, I guess everybody knows an Eagle Scout project is about organizing, getting the materials, getting it installed. It's more of an organization thing as much as it is a actual installation. But he actually built from scratch. These are all metal, and they did welding and powder coated paint. Really, really high quality job. And they're a bicycle repair station. And you can't really see it here, but you can put your bike up on it, and so they can get to the wheels to take those off, tighten it up. And on the other side of this, attached to it, are all different kind of wrenches and screwdrivers and things you need to work on a bike. And then there's a bike pump that's attached to the ground right here next to it. So this is probably the most involved Eagle Scout project that we've ever worked on. And William and Von Lynn really worked closely with Jackson on that. And Tricia posted it on our social media just yesterday, and it's already got have like 250 something likes on it. So it's caught a lot of people's attention. And the biking community, who's very active out there, just loves it. It was kind of a surprise to them. They weren't expecting it. So, but they've been asking for something like that. So really a good project. Right there, the tools are actually, they're on a cable. Each one's on a cable and it's attached really securely, and they kind of dangle on the side, and then but they can reach over to where you put your bike up on the rack. And so it's it's easy to work on it at that height, and all the tools are right there.
So we have a new business.
You should be looking to selling these things.
Yeah, definitely.
So they're they put the label on it here too. Very well done. Painted it Sugarland blue, got the city blue colors. So really well done.
Where's that at that park?
I'm sorry.
Where is it exactly?
This is the restaurant building at Brazos River Park.
Oh, okay.
And so right across the street from the parking lot.
Okay, nice.
He's installing 3 more.
Nice.
One more at the Memorial Park, one at the Oyster Creek Park, and one at the Crown Festival.
Like over there, 6 months.
Thank you for adding that. Yeah, there's this one.
Having me fix it.
Our senior center staff, they came up with the idea of doing a kickoff this summer with all the seniors there. So they came up with the idea of a barbecue and a kind of outdoor barbecue under a tent and outdoor games. And they had a small band there, barbecue cater, and they had the tent set up. This is in the green space right next to the senior center. So it happened to be a really nice day. It was kind of before it got real hot a couple of weeks ago. And so the seniors came out in large numbers and really enjoyed the day. And they were all just coming up to Kimberly and I and talking about how they, loved this idea and would like to see more of it. It's funny. We feel like we have outdoor activities right adjacent to the senior center, but a lot of times they don't go out and use them. But I guess when you organize something for them and, they'll know it's specifically there, they definitely show up. So it was a really, really nice thing to do. I think it's probably will become an annual thing from now on. And then the Memorial Day event, we had about 1,500 people came and went that day. There were activities for kids by the playground. A lot of our staff was there to kind of man different functions around the site. Our council members were there. We had speakers, patriotic music, the 21 gun salute, and then also the raising of the flags by a local Boy Scout troop. Nice day. And then we continue to have our Food Truck Friday events throughout the month of June. Our last one for June will be this coming Friday. Ho-Jin was out there in his role as Mobility Task Force Chairman, Mobility Committee Chairman. So they were out there getting community input from folks for the mobility.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
It was really nice to see. It's just, at first it was a little slow because of the people getting off from work, and all of a sudden just people everywhere. And the lines were fantastic. Drinks, ice cream, oh my goodness, really nice, really good.
You got one more shot to come this Friday if you'd like to come at Memorial Park. It's at the main pavilion at Memorial Park. And then our annual 4th of July Red, White, and Boom event coming up, obviously on July 4th. So out at the park, we should have a big fireworks show, food trucks, musical entertainment, activities for kids. It kicks off at 5 p.m. Fireworks are right around 9 p.m. And there's parking on site, as well as we'll have shuttle buses running from Smart Financial Center parking, and then also University of Houston. And we're working on setting up a walkway from the University of Houston parking lot as well. People don't want to shuttle, they can walk. It'll be a good long walk on a hot day, but if you don't want to get on wait for a shuttle bus, there will be that opportunity. So we're hoping we get a little bit of rain between now and then, just because it's so dry and so hot. But if you get a chance to come out, I think we'll have VIP parking passes available to you, and you'll be able to park right up close. And we'll provide all the. We're parking a little different this year, but we'll provide a map for board members so you won't get lost. And I think that's it. Any questions about anything?
All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your report. Very good.
Always good.
All right. So I guess, comments?
I was just gonna make a lunch.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Oh, she's still
That's
we'll take
Jumping
the
the gun.
motion. So Joe
I make
has,
a motion that we call the meeting.
thank you very much.
I'll second. Pass it too.
With that said, call for adjournment. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks, everybody.
Correct language.
I'm gonna do my shameful plug.
Fun stuff.
Well, I give you the opening, I get you the opening.
I know, I was gonna take it. I thought,
I know, I had, I just
Are you working? I was like, we're working like
yeah.
cooking?
No.
Slow like those things do. But I think you'll catch on.
I know that there's sugar cane bluegrass. It's not the easiest native grass to find. The Gulf Mead, pretty pink fluffy one that you see in a lot of developments. That one's really easy to find, but muley grass, that's a native one. But sugar cane bluegrass is a little more niche.
Yeah, state partner.
Yeah, I'll assume you'll trust that.
Wait, and he said so patient. He said super patient.